Hello there fellow NPCs, I am Scythe and today we're getting into Everlasting Summer. We are starting our fifth storyline here, the fifth path, which is Miku, the blue girl that likes to play music and talks really fast, you know, like she doesn't have any other thoughts in her head and stuff like that. We are going to swoo her this time around. And she is different from the other girls because the other girls have a good and a bad ending, while Miku, you only have to pinpoint every selection that is hers and then you will get her ending. There is no good or bad, it's just the ending on her. So that is what we're going to do today. We are on day 1 or 2, I believe it was, and when we are going to get the cards to play the tournament that Electronic has made up. And we need to start off with go alone to get the cards. So yeah, we'll do that. I will do that, and then I will come back to you when we get to the next important decision. Let's go! So we're going to go alone, and I noticed that I need to do this entire thing because in the previous video we already took the keys, which is also working on Miku's path. So that does change things now that we're getting the cards. So yeah, let's continue. Yeah, I'll go get them alone. Fine, they were in my cabin, in the desk drawer. I headed to Olga Dmitrievna's place, which is also my place. Why did I agree anyway? Then again, what choice did I have? There's nothing to do here at night, at least I'll have some fun. But my mind kept nagging me about this not being a good time for having fun. On the other hand, if there was actually a Scythe camp with pioneers, then it must be someone's doing. And even if it's not true, then the most logical thing is to seek answers here, not in the forest or fields. But at this very moment, the answer is going to play cards. I opened the door with my own key and went inside. To my surprise, there were no cards here inside. Instead, it was full of cups, forks, knives, plates, scotch-tape, scissors, rubber gloves, and a piece of rope, a few plastic bags, pencils, and a few broken pens. Everything except the playing cards. Maybe I should look in the closet. It was full of Olga Dmitrievna's clothes, but a small drawer with a keyhole at the top caught my eye. I pulled, but it didn't open. I wonder if she's hiding something. Forcing it open wasn't the best idea, even if the cards were in there. I was just turning to leave as I remembered something. Slava forgot her keys yesterday. They're here. What if... For a moment I hesitated, but then approached the closet and started picking a key for the lock. Of course, it would be strange to expect a result. Indeed, why would Slavia carry a key for Olga Dmitrievna's personal chest? But to my surprise, another key slid into the lock and turned a few times without a problem. Suddenly, the door squeaked behind me. I jumped and turned around, but there was nobody in the cabin. Oh, was it the wind? I carefully looked outside, not a single person in sight. Perhaps it was nothing, but I still felt uneasy. I even looked in the bushes by the cabin, but then decided to go back and seek out all the dark secrets of our chief. Semyon, what's taking you so long? Oh, this is where she shows up. Okay. Yes, With shaking hands, I turned the key and jerked it out of the lock. Slavia came closer. My keys. I thought I'd lost them. Where did you find them? They were in the bushes outside. I found them just now. Thank God I managed to close it before she saw. Shall we go? I wanted to get out as fast as possible and preferably forget about my attempt to violate someone's privacy. When I got back, Olga Dmitrievna informed me, "Sorry, I remember the cards were in Slavia's cabin. And this part we have seen, so I'll see you whenever the next point is." And now, if I remember correctly, we should be looking for Shurik. So yeah, let's go to the bus stop. That's where we will find Miku. So yeah, let's go. The bus stop seems to be a fine choice. A strange thought came across me. Perhaps Shurik is in the same situation as me, and so he decided to run away from this camp. Maybe by the 410 bus. It could really turn out to be true, if he came here by accident too. Although the chances of that are quite slim. But you never know. What if the buzzer would really come? However, I could hardly believe in that. Indeed, I spent a couple of minutes waiting at the bus stop, made sure that there was no sign of Shuriko or anyone else here, and headed back to the camp. Somebody rushed out from behind the gates and bumped into me. The impact wasn't strong, so I just staggered. Miku stood in front of me and rubbed her bruised forehead. Ew. Oh, sorry. It's alright, it's my fault. I was going to the music club, but get lost in thought about a new song. You know, think up the lyrics and music. I hadn't realized how I got here. So you don't have to apologize. Her words per minute rate obviously exceeded the recognition limits of my brain. I made an attempt to retreat promptly. Sure, gotta go, you know. Oh, wait! I wanted to leave as usual without having to listen to her, but Miku grabbed my hand. Her grasp gave me the creeps as I got a clear vision of an agonizing execution by another rap session. Can you help me a little, please? Just a teensy-weensy bit? That definitely wasn't on my to-do list today. Well, I'd be glad to, but it's, pretty please? Miku looked at me with such puppy dog eyes that my heart started to melt. She totally wasn't going to let me go of my hand. What help exactly do you need? You'll accompany me. I can't manage to compose on my own. I can sing or play, but I can't do both at the same time. Even our virtuoso has her weaknesses. Well, you know, I can't really play any instrument. Never mind that. I'll show you everything. Come on, let's go. And we're obviously going to go with Miku. Otherwise, it's a waste of time. On the other hand, I'm not losing anything. However, she dragged me along with her. Probably nothing good will come of this, but the only way to get her off me is to wrestle my hand out of hers. But that wouldn't be very nice. Nothing bad will happen after all. Probably. Within a minute we were already standing in the music club. Miku took a guitar. Here, have a look. She sat down and started playing. I tried to follow her hands. The tune seemed quite simple. It seemed quite easy to repeat it. Got it? Kind of. Let's try. I took the guitar and started playing. That didn't really work out. Let me show you one more time. She played much better than me. Looking at Miku, I wondered. Of course she was a chatterbox. She was naive and clumsy. However, she was extremely talented in music. Try again. I managed much better the second time. Wow, that's much better. She smiled. It wasn't hard. In fact, just repeat the same notes over and over. Just don't lose track. Start on my command. Okay. Ready? Go! It was a song in Japanese. Frankly speaking, I didn't understand a single word, but Miku's singing was quite good. In fact, it was outstanding. Yeah, some Hatsune Miku. She put her heart in every note, every word. Yeah, music probably is the very thing for her to dedicate her life to. It seemed like it wasn't her who chose the music, but the music that has chosen her. The last half an hour presented Miku in a completely different light. Oh, thank you. Did you like it? I finally managed it with you. On my own, it's not so good. I either mess up with the words or I miss the strings, and it's just perfect with you. Thank you so much. You really have a talent, you know? Just to play like that without any preparation? Nope. It seems I changed my opinion about her too hastily. Thanks for the song. I gotta go. See you. Thanks for... The rest of her words were left behind the door. I leaned on the wall on the club cabin inside. Miku's song was still playing in my mind. Yeah, that's that. So we will go to the old campsite. And so I'll see you guys there. And now we're back. We have been to the infirmary. We've been in charge over there. And we did not eat the apple. Because that is the next thing we need to do. If you don't eat the apple, you get the Miku Path. If you eat the apple, you get something else. Yeah, now we're choosing to go alone, which is also a Miku Path, a Miku choice. Am I going there alone? Olga Dmitrievna looked thoughtful. Perhaps you're right. We'll go together tomorrow morning. Oh. We stood in silence for some time, then dispersed around the camp. Everybody seemingly forgot about the list and the terrorist act. Maybe due to the minor damage it caused. Together with the camp leader, I went towards our cabin. I tried to think of why Shurik would go to the old camp. He's interested in robotics, robots and cybernetics, not scary stories and ghosts. What does that boot have to do with it? I remember how I decided to wait until something extraordinary would happen. And then I realized, this is it. Olga Dmitrievna, I'll take a walk before bed. Just not a long one. Okay. When I reached the square, I understood that hanging around in the forest or some other strange place may not be that scary, but doing so in the dark. I didn't want to return to Olga Dmitrievna's cabin, but I had to find a flashlight. For instance, there was one in the infirmary. I was glad I didn't spend my whole time there reading the fashion magazine. The flashlight was found quickly, and in a few minutes I was again standing at the square, pulling myself together. I just had to make the final decision before I entered the forest. Moving past the pioneers' cabins, down the forest path towards the abandoned camp. I set forth. Electronic told me that the old building was built immediately after the war. I looked like a kindergarten, or like barracks I expected, and definitely could hold up fewer pioneers than today's camp. It had been abandoned for about 20 years. It was now totally dark. The forest looked totally different at night. Mysterious shadows were hiding behind the trees, strange rustlings and the cries of night birds coming from everywhere, branches treacherously snapping under my feet. The full moon was shining, so I decided to save the battery and the flashlight. I'm sure I will need it sometime soon. The further I moved, the more unpleasant thoughts came into my head. I wasn't afraid of the dark at all. I didn't believe in ghosts and other mystical crap, but at the same time, during the last few days I had encountered so many incomprehensible phenomena that against my own will, I started to read between the lines of the simplest things. Obviously, I felt exceptionally uneasy in the forest at night. Everywhere I looked, every shadow, every tree or bush looked like weird creatures. Escaping straight from horror movies or from Stephen King novels. A branch seemed to be someone's hand, eager to grab your shoulder. A fallen log, someone's dead body. Somebody who failed to get out of the forest. In every gully I saw a bottomless abyss. If I had found myself in this forest under any other circumstances, without all these buses and pioneer camps, of course I would still feel uncomfortable, but then I would be able to explain everything with logic and be afraid of nothing, except for owls and mice, of course. But at the moment, there were more than enough reasons to fear. Despite all this, I reached the old camp without any adventures. In a little glade surrounded by trees stood a house resembling a kindergarten. Paint peeled off the walls, almost all of the windows were broken masonry here and there, holes in the roof that looked like those made by a bombing. In the front of the building was a little garden, surrounded by a rusty fence. Apparently once it was a playground with a merry-go-round, swings, slides and other Soviet attractions. But time is cruel, all of them were broken and mutilated by corrosion. The grass was so tall that it almost came up to my waist. There we go. The moon looked out from behind the clouds and illuminated the old camp. It seemed like everything came back to life. Windows shone with new glass and walls looked like they had been painted with fresh paint. I heard playful laughter. Saw translucent children joyfully running and frolicking in the yard. A trim camp leader on the threshold, holding a basket with ripe apples in their hands. The old cleaning lady taking a nap in the shade. Dude, why didn't we see any of this before? Are the girls anti-ghost protectors? Ghostbusters? It sent chills down my spine. Of course, my imagination was just playing tricks, but the old camp itself was so similar to all the post-apocalyptic pictures I had seen that these visions were no surprise. I stood undecided for a long time before I dared to go further. After all, I'm here to find Scythe. Though I still don't get what he might be doing here. If he even is here. A boot somewhere nearby doesn't mean anything. However, if he was not eaten by wolves, for some reason it seemed like there were no wolves in this forest, this must be the only place where he might be hiding. I carefully crossed the yard, pushing the tall grass apart and trying not to bump into a jagged piece of metal. But I stopped in a doorway, hesitating. An impenetrable heavy darkness stared back at me from my inside. Even the bright moonlight could not illuminate any object, or even highlight a silhouette. My head was filled up with different thoughts that all said that it's better for me to not go any further and run away quickly. But I pulled myself together, turned on the flashlight and stepped onto the threshold. Inside the building looked like a typical kindergarten. I still remembered my childhood days, and so everything here looked very familiar. A sleeping room with lines of beds standing close to each other, a large playroom, toilets, a dining room and utility rooms. Signs of the past children's joy were seen everywhere. From time to time, the flashlight drew my attention to a decaying doll, or a plastic toy car, or a punctured rubber ball, or a broken rank of tin soldiers. There was a book on a table, faded with age. I flipped through a few pages. It was a story I had read a long time ago, back in my childhood. Something about the war. Enemies destroyed the kindergarten, and all of its kids hid in the little basement together with a bunch of adults, while bombs were exploding up on the surface. I don't remember the end of the story, but as far as I remembered, nobody died. Looking at the illustrations, all the emotions, fears, sadness, sympathy for the poor children, and a sense of hopelessness which I had experienced while reading the book came over me. It's strange that under exactly these conditions, right here and now, that I found this book. Probably there is somebody who manages this ongoing story, who writes the scenario for this absurd play, who sews costumes for the local pioneers, and creates sets like this abandoned camp. To tell the truth, he is very talented. Attention is paid to even the most minor of details. Although this place was abandoned a long time ago, everything here seemed to be untouched. Of course, time didn't spare this camp. In so many years it had often been visited by the locals. A perfect place for young people just hitting puberty. They could drink alcohol, indulge in amorous pleasures, or simply burn everything down just for fun. Electronic mentioned this place is full of legends. Legends of ghosts and devils living here. Take for example the story about the camp leader who committed suicide. In my world nobody would believe that this could stop somebody. But in this reality, anything is possible. Certainly, the fear didn't disappear, but I decided that since I'd come here, I was going to carry on to the end. The building was small, so it wasn't difficult to search it completely, but I didn't find any sign of Scythe. Maybe I should just call out to him. But on the other hand, maybe that's just not a good idea. Frustrated, I sat on a bench in the lobby inside. "Ghost, where are you?" I asked the camp. And all of a sudden I noticed a strange depression in the corner. A small trap door, an adult would barely be able to squeeze through it. And it seemed to me that it had been recently opened as the dust was cleared around it. And so here's the part where I need to be scared. So, Scythe went somewhere. What might be lurking beneath the trap door? A basement? What would he be doing there? I pulled open the hatch and pointed a flashlight into the darkness. There was a ladder going down a couple of meters, ending in a concrete floor. It was a low, narrow corridor disappearing in the darkness. I hesitated for a long time. On the one hand, I had absolutely no desire to go down there, but on the other hand, if Scythe was really there... I swore loudly and began to descend. Downstairs it was so dark that even the flashlight didn't help much. That's strange, that's not how flashlights are supposed to work. A low ceiling, wires extending along the walls, broken lamps clad in iron bars. I've seen it all somewhere. I slowly started to move deeper into the dungeon. The path went down and after a few dozen meters ended at a stairway with high steps. Soon I found myself in front of a massive metal door. There was a sign painted on it. I looked closely and realized that it was a biohazard sign. No wonder, if the whole camp was built after the war and it lasted until the 70s. So it's an ordinary bomb shelter and there is nothing to be afraid of. However, those thoughts made me even more scared. I made a decision and opened the door, which immediately shut with a sharp sound as soon as I stepped through the doorway. Well, that sucks! I shuddered strongly, my hands began to tremble and my vision dimmed. I regained consciousness after a few seconds, and only then did I realize that apparently a strong spring was attached to the door. I found myself in a quite spacious room. In the beam of the flashlight I could see a bunk bed, some cabinet along the walls and several devices of unknown purpose located in the far corner. It seems that this bomb shelter has never been used. Nobody ever came here. The beds were made, which is strange in itself. I carefully looked around the room several times. The cabinets were filled with gas masks, chemical protective suits, dry rations, various domestic odds and ends. The devices which I had at first could determine the purpose of were gauges of radiation, air pressure and temperature. In short, it was a typical bomb shelter. I'd never been in such a place before, but it was how I imagined it. The only thing that remained unexplored was the door at the other end of the room. I pulled the handle, but the door remained closed. If someone recently came down here and he wasn't found in this room, then it would be logical to assume that he is behind this door. I called out in whisper. "Shurik!" No reply. Maybe he locked himself out. But why? It was unclear what I should do next. Perhaps it would be smarter to come back tomorrow with help, but for some reason I had a feeling that behind this door I would find the answer that I can't wait to be found. I walked across the room and took a crowbar from the corner. I wedged it under the bottom of the door and tried to rip it from its hinges. Oddly enough, after a while I did just that. Fortunately it wasn't as massive as the previous door. The door gave out and slammed onto the floor. I took a deep breath and pointed the flashlight down the passage. A corridor vanished in the darkness, the same as the one which had brought me here. The walls were closing in, my head almost touched the ceiling, but I could not make out the end of the corridor. I walked carefully, looking at the ground. This was the reason that I did not fall into the pit. The hole was about 1.5 meters in diameter, and there was earth at the bottom of it instead of concrete. It seemed that the hole was caused by an explosion. It wasn't too deep. I could easily climb out later. After I jumped into the hole, I found myself in something that resembled an old mine. The walls and the ceiling were reinforced with wooden beams. The tunnel was so long that my flashlight was insufficient. A few minutes later I found myself at the crossroads. It's too dangerous to go any further. I could get lost. I decided that it would be a good idea to somehow mark the place from which I would begin my journey into the labyrinth, so I picked up a stone and made quite a big notch on the wall. So, I went further and further. It seems there is no end to these tunnels, like I'm trapped in the Minotaur's labyrinth and a terrible creature will appear soon. I was exhausted and slowly slid down the ground, leaning against the mine's damp walls. Interesting that we don't make a choice here. We are just walking through it when we're alone. Where is that damn Shurik? And how many hours have I been walking around here? My eyes began to close. Just for a minute. Oh? Are we passing out? What's happening? What? Okay, so this is how it's supposed to go. I had no idea it would end already. Let's see. Because sometimes a dream is just a dream. One doesn't have to look it up on the internet, searching for an interpretation of a dream that invaded your dream world in such a rude manner. One doesn't have to assume that it's a sign, a prophecy, a prediction of the future. Sometimes a dream is just a dream, a beautiful story that is just not going to happen in your real life. A fairy tale sketched by your resting brain and painted by your imagination. Sometimes a dream is just a dream, even if it comes in several parts. Huh? Oh! Okay, yeah, now it makes sense. Okay, a dream in a dream. Interesting. So we just woke up from a dream. Because I do know where this is going, but I didn't know this is how it happened. Damn, I'm so tired of all this. But actually, that means I'm going to cut off today's episode here. Interesting. I was not prepared for this. This is where I cut off today's episode, and in the next one, in the next week from now, we will continue Miku's Path. And yeah, I guess we will just do the entire thing then and there. So yeah. Thank you guys for watching, and thank you Josef for donating directly to my Ko-fi page. If you guys want to help me out, you can do so by clicking the link down in the description. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll be seeing you guys in the next one. Goodbye everyone.